Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and we have the great privilege today coming to us from Spain to have author and researcher Ole Dammegard. Welcome, Ole.
Thank you so much, Alfred.
I know that this was quite an urgency and emergency, Ole, when you emailed me, and then we sent this out on an emergency basis to our colleagues in the research community and those colleagues who are active in the anti-pedosexual, pedocriminal area. Your report that you received of an apparent holding facility underground at the Droop Mountain State Park in West Virginia, which apparently was the site of the last major battle of the American Civil War in West Virginia. Could you tell us how you got that report, and how was it that you the contest, and how was it that you sent it to us, and then we can say what has happened to it since we've sent it out?
Well, I'm not an expert in this area, but I really care for our children. And one of the things I've come across many times over the 3 decades that I've been looking into these type of things are the disappearance of especially children, and that there's some horrific stories about these children, what is happening to them. And one of these, the theories, or one of the facts about what is going on, is that they are being abducted and then delivered into these pedophile trafficking networks where horrific things are going on. So what I've been doing after I started finding out about these things, and also started focusing on them together with my dear friend Karine Hutzebaut, who is a fantastic woman who spent some 30 years facing and exposing these high-level forces when it comes to pedocrimes and so on. After that, and in many interviews, one of the things I've said is that somehow they are abducting children. I mean, this is on such a scale that there must be a very clear pattern once you start looking into it. There must be some methods that they use quite often. I mean, so I've been suggesting to people who are unemployed or retired or whatever, start looking into cold cases, people that have disappeared. Where did they disappear? How did they disappear? Try and see similar pattern, was a similar time, was a specific locations where these things happen and so on. And one of the places that keeps coming back when it comes to people disappearing are national parks in the US. And I mean, we're not talking about 1, 2, 5, 10 or a few hundreds. We're talking like numbers that I have problems really understanding that it's possible, but like in more than 100,000 and so on per year, if what I'm being told is correct. I mean, some masses of people disappearing in these areas. Because, okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, because it is, where you look at the amount of children being said to have been pumped into this very satanic, awful system thing, there must be like almost like distribution chains, like how do they get them? I mean, this is not easy. This must be a real logistic problem that somebody has solved, where people from all over, or children from all over, are being gathered, somehow prepared and transported on location for these different parties or rituals or whatever. So how is it done? How is it done? And this is what I've asked people to help me with. Let's see if we can map this thing. Let's see, for instance, this horrific castle in Belgium called the Mother of Darkness, where it's said that 1 child per day is being murdered under these, at least one, and so on, and where people have seen incredible stuff. I mean, according to Corinne and other researchers that have spent so many years, how is it possible and what can we do? And one of the things I've suggested is let's go on location, camp outside these places, register all the vehicles going in and out with their numbers, count the people, take photos of all the people in and out and so on, and see if we can get this to a stop, at least interfere it so that they had to move these activities, and then just let's interfere, let's become a boil in their butt in every location we can find. One of the things that keeps appearing though in these different cases is the possibility of tunnels, of networks underneath the ground, because all type of criminality, I would say 100% of all criminality, can only continue in the dark, where people do not see what's going on. As soon as it's exposed, as soon as the spotlight is aimed at it, it stops. It comes to a stop, because these people, or whatever, I don't know what to call them, who are involved in this, are like cockroaches. They fear the light, they fear the exposure. So here is a massive chance for us to make a great difference by just exposing the networks, exposing who's involved and who's doing what, and so on. And then a few days ago, I received this email from a Facebook friend that I don't know personally, but it was a cry for help, you know, where she said that she's a woman living in Belgium, but she had a friend who had been to the US to this national park, and he had been in the Droop Mountain Museum. It's sort of like a very small war museum. And he had heard from underneath it, it sounded like from some cave or tunnel underneath, children crying for help. I mean, even thinking about it, just anyway. So he tried to alert people there, security people and so on, saying, "Please, there's some children. Maybe they're stuck down there, and what's going on?" And he was approached by two men, officially looking, who just said, "No, don't. There's no children here. Please leave the premises and go away." And so I thought, when I received this, and also this cry for help from this woman, I felt this is a possible first step to uncover a whole network. If what I believe is true, then we're looking at a global network where many of these places are very similar. And these places I'm talking about is similar in such a way that they have some kind of connection to an army base, some kind of connection to an airstrip, some kind of connection to often historical places or important places when it comes to that people have died there. Also that they will have some kind of connection with tunnel systems. Because what I believe is going on, and I want to tell you a story about Chip Tatum, you know, my CIA whistleblower friend, who he used to be a helicopter pilot, a black op with these black helicopters. And one of the things he said, that he used to fly people, prisoners, in for experiments, I think MK Ultra type of style experiments, and the place that he was talking about was Springfield, Missouri, where he said the famous doctors were doing things to these poor buggers, and he flew them in, he flew them out, and so on. And when I was in Norway trying to expose the mass shooting there, I also went to the prison where the alleged mass murderer Anders Breivik is located, officially located, I would say. And when I was walking around there, please remember, Norway is a NATO country, and NATO and the CIA and Pentagon very closely connected. Anyway, there was when I thought this is the most wanted, hated man in Norway. So I was expecting like a high security type of prison, high walls, lots of barbed wire, all of these type of things. Nothing. I came to the prison. It was in the outskirts of a town called Skien, out in an industrial industrial area, low walls, a few cameras, and that was it. And this is the number one hated person in Norway, who's alleged, is said to have killed some 77 people in Norway. Most of them young kids out on an island. So the thing was that when I walked around in the area, I just got this very strange feeling that this was exactly a type of place like Chip had told me. So I afterwards, when I got back, I got it confirmed by him, because in that area around the prison, there were industrial estates and so on, but very few cars. And the industrial companies were involved in IT technology, security type of things. I can't remember, but it was almost isolated. There was very, very little going on in the area, which is exactly what Chip said. When they have these facilities, they use army bases, mental hospitals, Navy bases, prisons, these type of installations where normal people they cannot see what's going on. Yeah. And so also Chip said that these companies are front companies most of the time, CIA front companies, that are there just to sort of keep people away, so that no one else get in the neighborhood close to that. And a friend of mine showed the prison, and we were walking up against the wall, and I started feeling very unwell. You know, I started feeling almost like sick, and I didn't understand it. But when we were walking there, it was in the summer, but about 10 meters from the wall and outwards, the grass was brown. It was dead. And so I asked my friend, is it always like this? And he said, yeah, I think they spray it so that if a prisoner jumps over the wall, he won't be able to hide. But I mean, we're talking like nothing grass-wise, like 20 centimeters, nothing where you could hide or anything like that. And then he said, but I want to show you something. So we went around, and there was a house, a building with like 6 carports in a row, but no windows in at all, just 6 carports. And on the outside, it said car import and then a phone number. Not Oslo car import or like Skien's car import or something, just car import and a phone number. And this is exactly what Chip had described in other areas, that these front companies will be very neutral looking, but as a facade, they would be, car rentals or so, but there would be very little going on there. These are just there as a nice front. So when I saw that, I was like, whoa, hang on. Here is one car import company with no windows and no cars outside, but 6 carports in a row. That sounds very strange to me. And it was like only 30 yards from the wall. Okay. And then he said, come and look here. Because on the side of this building, there was a container that had been repainted. A big, one of these big truck containers or from cargo ships. It was on the side. But it was repainted in the exact same color as the building. But some of the paint had fallen off. So you could see there was a very green, almost fluorescent green underneath. And we went around the building, and on the back of the building, there was another container that was not repainted, very strong color, and on the side it said Evergreen. And Evergreen is a CIA super company, transport company. So when I asked Chip about I described the whole thing, and then I mentioned the container, and he just started laughing and he says, "Oh, our old boys." So I thought, here I nailed it, according to him as well. This is everything I said made full sense to him. And also when I was there, and I asked my friend, is there an airstrip anywhere nearby? And he said, well, on the other side of the hill. Because what Chip told me is that what they do is they fly people in the dark hours of night or whatever, then transport them in vans, neutral looking vans or vans that are connected to whatever facility, and then they transport them into these areas where odd things happen to them. Or, like, just like I'm questioning, is Anders Breivik in there? I doubt it. I totally doubt that this prisoner is there. And this is what Chip said as well. He laughed and he said, well, who knows? Maybe he's not even there. Because I've got at least 4 different photos of supposedly the same guy, but they don't even look the same. But
right.
So who is this Anders Breivik? And that operation I've exposed in many interviews on your program as well. And
right.
I made a presentation called When Terror Struck Norway. People can see it on YouTube, where I go through in very great detail that this
right.
whole thing stinks. So also close to this building where this car import business was, there was another like business type looking buildings, but they were empty. They were hard, super modern, looked nice, everything, but there's no people, no cars, and we were there on a regular weekday. And I asked my friend, have you seen people here? He said, no, not really. When you say it, I never really noticed. And so I asked Chip, what is this thing with that company? Is that just another front? And he said, no, most probably this is where the tunnels go into the prison. So because I said, what is the whole thing with these 6 carports? And he said, well, if you want to be discreet, you reverse into a building like that, carport down, boom, and you got access to the tunnel system in and out from the prison. Who will notice what's going on?
Right. So,
and also he said, I also described this brown grass thing, and he said, oh, it's the death zone. I said, what? He said, it's the death zone. And he said, the reason why the grass is dead there is because they have put high voltage cables underneath the ground. And this, because if somebody gets too close or try to escape or whatever, they can't switch it on too much. It will just blow all the fuses and so on. So it needs to be on quite a high voltage at all times, so that if they need to activate it, they can just boom. So it will go from me, for instance, feeling sick to fried potato in a few seconds. Boom.
I see.
So I thought that was interesting, to say the least. So if I take this thing and take the same thinking, because we're talking NATO, we're talking the CIA, we're talking delivery into these kind of high-level New World Order networks. So it doesn't matter if you deliver weapons or drugs or kids. They will use, I'm sure they will use the same network as anyone would do. If you're into groceries or supermarkets or whatever, you would use the same networks for the distribution. I'm convinced about that. So what he also said, or the impression I got, was that these people, if transported between countries and so on, if they were many, it would be in army planes or NATO planes, from army base to NATO base, or Army Air Force base and so on, and then transported in discreetly looking vans or buses from the base to location for whatever. So this is what I believe we have to look out for. We need to check, are there any airstrips, just like in Mena, Arkansas, that they use? This will be often, my suggestion would be small airstrips without one of these flight towers, because it's so much easier to fly in and out after dark. It would be outside small towns where nobody will really notice what's going on. It will be a distance away from most buildings or towns or so on, but it will be quite close anyway. There will be some kind of army base or military installation nearby, and there will be access to a tunnel network. So if we take all of this and we go to Droop Mountain, the first thing I started looking for was, are there any tunnels in this area? And yes, we have a very famous tunnel even. It's called Droop Mountain Tunnel. It's along the Greenbrier River Trail, and it's one of these old. It's 120 kilometers. That is about 80 miles, and it's an old tunnel system that used to be in the railroad system. Also, please keep in mind as well, since we're talking Pizzagate and these type of things, that when you look on a Google map from West Virginia, from where the Ping Pong Pizzeria and all of these things are said to be located, we're looking at a very short distance, really. And also, there are tunnel systems that are just all over the place. And very near here, there is an installation, an Army installation called West Virginia's Army National Guard Lewisburg Readiness Center. And I found a map on Twitter of a tunnel system. I do not know if it's accurate, but they're just tunnels all over the place, And these tunnels, I believe, might very well date back to the Civil War, or even before that, or whatever. Things have been going on in this area. And also, sorry. I just have to say,
Sorry.
Every time I do a tour, I've just been doing a mini tour in England. I just flew back, and every time I fly, I get this horrific cough. And according to my friend, I think you've had him on your show as well, Willem Felderhof, who's a whistleblower.
Yeah. When
it came to these things, he exposed that the air inside more or less all airplanes now. He used to be a commercial pilot for 25 years. And the air that comes in goes in through the jet engines, get heated, compressed, and then is pumped in through the air system into the cabin. But the thing is, what happens in the jet engines is that they leak a certain type of neurotoxin that we inhale when we're on the aircraft. Right. Also nowadays, when it's not even clean air, but it's pumped with chemtrails and crap as well outside. So the thing is, more or less every time I get off a plane, I have 3-4 days of coughing and snorting and fever. But he says one of the ways you can try and avoid this, he can't fly at all. It will kill him. He almost died from this. But he says, if you pump yourself with C vitamins before and during, after, that
with what? C
vitamins. Oh, really pump yourself big time. That can help to a certain extent. So,
yeah, I agree with you.
Anyway, so please continue.
No. You were making some very interesting points about the networks of tunnels in the West Virginia area that were extensive. That there was a Droop Mountain tunnel system that was 120 clicks or about 80 miles long, and also that this was close to the Washington, D.C. area. So you could have Droop Mountain as a supply line up to the Pizzagate area of Washington, D.C. If they were gathering children, if the Droop Mountain State facility, that park, apparently we had one source who said that under museums throughout the United States is where they have pedocriminal gathering facilities. For example, in Los Angeles, there's one such pedocriminal staging facility under the J. Paul Getty Museum. And that the Droop Mountain could be a staging facility, and that there's underground tunnels there that if it's 80 miles long, well, it could go all the way up to Washington, because
I have to correct you there, Alfred.
Oh, sorry.
the Greenbrier Trail, River Trail,
Oh,
is 80
sorry.
miles long.
Oh,
But
sorry.
there are the Droop Mountain Tunnel is part of this trail,
Oh, I
and
see. Sorry.
also I found maps on Twitter that shows that around in this area there are many. It's a very complex network of tunnels in that area.
Right.
I think that they look like very. If this map is correct, they're very not modern looking because they're like they look like a snake, you know, like there's not very great
Right.
efficiency in how they're dug. But that doesn't mean that they're not used, because
Yeah.
the whole thing is children disappears from these national parks again and again and again.
Yes.
And it's like so it's almost like if you had a pedophile in your neighborhood, where would he be? People get warned all the time, or they say about, oh, you know, around the playground, watch out if you see any dirty old men and stuff.
Yeah.
Here we have the same air. Would be a perfect place to do it, because if you are, for instance, skilled people when it comes to abducting people, you can have a team of like 5-6 people involved in every abduction. Where in a national park, I mean, how easy is it to hide or camouflage yourself in the bushes and so on? If you got ether and stuff to put people under, especially a child, you know, the child goes and along the sea line or the lake and just gets too close. They divert the attention from the parents. Maybe one of the team goes up, start asking about directions or something, so that the adults is looking the other way, and boom, the child is gone. It goes within seconds.
Exactly. You know? And just to be sure, looking into this issue, now I just want to say at the outset that the Droop Mountain State Park is part of the West Virginia State Park systems. It's not a U.S. national park, but so it appears that there's a parallel system in the state parks, which may be, it may be, you know, an international pedocriminal system, which operates in parallel, both with the U.S. national park systems and the state park systems. Because what's very interesting is that if you start researching this area, the mysterious disappearances of children in U.S. national parks go back 125 years. And that's almost to the inception of the U.S. national park system with Teddy Roosevelt. And so that was after the U.S. Civil War in the 1860s. What happened is that through the Act of 1871, the City of London and the Vatican came over and essentially bankrupted the U.S. The City of London, the Rothschilds, and the Jesuits, the Vatican manipulated the young United States into a civil war by manipulating both the North against the South. They bankrupted the country. And then through the Act of 1871, they forced the District of Columbia, which was a city-state, which then became the institutionalized Vatican and City of London inside the United States, because it's not a state. And that's how the United States became essentially a war contractee to the City of London and to the Vatican, and has fought its wars. And that's why the U.S. its basic industry is as a war fighter for the Vatican, for the City of London, and for the Federal Reserve Bank. And you know, World War I, World War II, and now they're trying to do World War III and all of the intermediate wars. And also to run the world pedocriminal industry, which is part of the Vatican, and the city of London, both of which are satanic enterprises. And so what better way than in the national parks? Oh, bring your family for a vacation. So you've been harvesting children at the national parks. Each national park is closed at dusk. It's closed. So it's closed. Then and it's a staging area. You know, children that have been abducted both in the national park and in surrounding areas can be brought there to be staged. And you have a complete run. They can be flown out. And even, I know that this is not your area, but there have been contracts made with civilizations on other planets. This is part of my work in exopolitics, where there are contracts for earthling children's with other planets. And part of the thing, you're absolutely right about airfields, because that's how they take them in and out, but also there's some speculation that this is where they take the children off planet, because there's a huge disappearance of children that goes for sacrifice, for off planet, for organ harvesting. It's like a tremendous industry, so that the holding area in West, we're hypothesizing now. What we're doing is looking, how could this be? Those children could be, they could have been harvested from the visitors to the park. They could have been brought there from the surrounding area, where they're gathered up through social services agencies, through all sorts of means, and that's a central deposit area. And then at night, because the park is shut down, and you had the two gentlemen in suits, you know, they're kind of part of that guard, then they're either taken out by airplane, or they're taken out through some underground railroad, or, you know, spaceships, or, you know, other things. And that's basically what we're dealing with. Go ahead.
You were talking about how to attracting children to the area and so on. Do you know the name of the county? The name of the county.
Right. Isn't that Pocahontas County?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where would your child like to go? Oh, Pocahontas. Please, can we not go there? This is, there's also a lot of tunnels underneath the Walt Disney area, the Disneyland, and it's Disney World, but in Florida. Is that Disney World or Disneyland? I can never remember.
Yeah, Florida, outside of Orlando, is Disney World, and then Disneyland is in the LA, Burbank, I think, kind of area.
Okay,
you know,
so it's, but Walt Disney got, it was with the help of CIA that he took over that land in Florida in a very quite brutal way to the landowner. And according to people that I know, there's a lot of tunnels underneath Disney World as well, and where Florida is the center of the CIA. And I'm just thinking, you know, like if you had so many children disappearing from Disneyland or Disney World, that would really affect business in a bad way. So you can't really do it in such obvious places. But a national park is a totally different one, because you can't put a blaming finger at anyone, because it's a big natural reserve. There's no person there to blame, because like the park ranger didn't do it. You know, so it's no one's fault. They just disappeared. So I would say it's a perfect area to abduct people in.
Yeah, and there's a documented history going back 125 years, and that's completely coterminous to when the City of London and the Vatican took over the U.S. after the Civil War, when they passed the Act of 1871, and overturned the Constitution, the original Constitution of 1789, and really became a vassal state of the City of London and the Vatican, which are satanic states, city-states. So it fits from a logical point of view. Plus, Jay Parker, our colleague Jay Parker, who grew up in a multi-generational satanic family, has said that up to 20% of the U.S. population, that's up to between 45 and 60 million people, are multi-generational satanic individuals. So they are raised in a culture of pedophilia, pedosexual, pedocriminal activity. And so it's that population, 45 million Americans, that support the constant child trafficking. And that makes the United States one of the major exporters of children. Apparently, during the Eisenhower administration, there was an agreement signed with Saudi Arabia and the Middle East to supply between 8 and 10 million children a year in return for the Saudi oil, because that brand of Wahhabism is a great, they use children for their pedosexual activities, and so it's a great industrial activity around the world. And now, with the advance of, quote, medical science, you've got to add in organ harvesting to it, where
it's a very ugly picture.
It's just totally ugly. And so your friend on Facebook has stumbled across this amazing thing. I would like to just take a moment, if I could, and just read a little bit from the opening paragraph of the report that your friend sent. Would that be okay?
Please do.
Yeah. It says, and this is what you sent to me, and that we have now sent to investigators and to white hats in the U.S. agencies. Let's say if we get an echo back on this. I live in Europe and met someone who had just returned from the States. He was in West Virginia at the Droop Mountain Battlefield Park. While he was in the park's museum, he heard children crying out for help. He went to investigate, and the children's voices seemed to be coming up from the underground, as though the museum was built over an underground cavity, cave, or tunnel. Thinking that very young children may have been exploring underground in caves and tunnels and got lost, and certain that they were beneath the museum, which possibly concealed an entrance into the underground cavity where the children were, he tried to gain entrance. Suddenly, two very official-looking men in suits came along and told him to move on. He told them that he heard children crying out for help, but they said there were no children in the vicinity and told him to leave. The children were still calling, "Please help us." So he said, "Listen, you can hear them." But the men escorted him back to his car and watched him leave the park. He tried to involve the police, asking them to accompany him back to the museum, but they showed no interest. He had a feeling that they had been told to expect him and to dismiss him. He was already very worried about this, envisaging children being lost underground of the museum, when Pizzagate exploded on the internet. So there we go.
There we go.
Now, here's one more piece of the puzzle, right? And this was reported by the BBC, okay? Just within the last 48 hours, President Donald Trump's Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, was confirmed by a vote of 52 to 47 as Attorney General. And there was one Democratic senator who broke ranks with the Republicans to vote for Sessions and confirm him, and that was Senator Joe Manchin, Manchin, of West Virginia. Now, what are the chances of that? Okay, now, from a political point of view, you can see how it is, because Trump is one of the few people who said, we're going to start up the West Virginia coal mines. So there's a political alliance between Trump and West Virginia as far as its coal mines and getting the West Virginia economy going yet. But now, so we have Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Now, we haven't checked into him yet. Maybe he's part of the pedo culture or not. But what is blazing throughout the internet now is that Trump has supposedly signed an executive order that is going to, that one of his famous executive orders ordering prosecution and arrests of all of the pedocriminal networks, including Pedogate, and that Sessions was put into power explicitly to prosecute pedocriminal networks. So if you have Joe Manchin, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, voting for Sessions, and Sessions is now supposedly under a Trump executive order to go after Pedogate and Pizzagate and to arrest these people, then it seems that we should be able to call up Joe Manchin's office and Sessions' office and say, here is a problem in your state at Droop Mountain State Park. Do something about it. And if they don't, we know that they're just running a facade to protect the global pedosexual enterprise, which seems to have been going on at these parks for at least 125 years. Did I miss something there? Does that seem logical to you?
It does indeed. And I tell you, if Trump is serious about this thing, oh my God, it's going to reveal a can of worms the size of the state of Florida. I mean, it's going to be massive, massive, because if you start pulling, this is why they try to avoid exposure of this as well, because once this starts coming out, it will bring so much else with it. You know, this is the worst of the worst of the worst. So I just want to say, when it comes to people involved in these things, I've heard people who have been, without them knowing it, when they started coming up into position of power, where they've been invited to these parties, not knowing what they were getting themselves into, and just being like, oh, I'm one of the big boys now, and, which is very easy to fall into that trap. And then once they were in that party, half drunk, maybe snorted some coke and something like, suddenly the door opened and in came very, very young prostitutes and almost children, these type of things, where it takes, when you have the pressure from the group around you and so on, to stand up and say no to whatever it is, it takes a strong character. And many people in these power positions are very weak individuals. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so hungry for these positions, I would say. And so many of them have been lured into it. It's not that they're evil to start with. They have been lured into it. But that does not make it okay for them to be part of protecting this whole thing. Now it's the chance for them to take a step out and be part of exposing it, because it will come out sooner or later. And I say sooner, let's do it now.
Yeah, the right now there is a tremendous amount of rumor on the internet that Sessions and Trump and that arrests are imminent in Pizzagate, in Washington, in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, in New York, in all of these cities. So we're at the heart of this, and I find it very kind of synchronous that all of a sudden we have Droop Mountain comes up. Droop Mountain was the site of one of the last battles of the U.S. Civil War, and what the media is trying to promote now, that we're in the second U.S. Civil War, which is the globalists versus the constitutionalists in the U.S., or the pedophiles versus the human beings, I guess you would call it. I don't know what you call them. As to this, and maybe it is, it's very significant that this came about as of Droop Mountain, but we haven't gotten yet back a clear signal. There are even people in West Virginia who were very much part of a peaceful patriot movement in West Virginia that are looking into this right now. So the Droop Mountain facility is under scrutiny of the patriot movement in West Virginia at this time.
That's excellent news. But
Yeah.
I would say let's not rest until these kids are out. You know, it's not enough just to say, "Oh, we're looking at you." We need to actively do something about it as well. Just imagine if it was your child, and so on. And also, this will be when it comes to these exposures, things like this. It's just like a hole in a balloon that will make the whole thing pop. There will be many, many, many similar places in the U.S. and other countries as well, where there's the same type of setup with an army base, military installation, national reserve, nature park, lots of many of children that had disappeared in the area and so on. And there will be people that have been wondering and perplexed during the years, like what is going on? There will be people who have been working in these military installations that have noticed things. There will be pilots that have been used. There will be truck drivers, ambulances, maybe not ambulances, but bus drivers, food deliverers, plumbers that have been in these installations and have seen things. So please use this as a template to see, whoa, maybe my suspicions were right. And if so, please bring that information up to the table so that we can use that to start and map the whole thing. You know, all these pieces will help to make a bigger picture so we can get this puzzle put together and expose the whole thing. Because otherwise they just shut down one little facility and open up in another place, you know, and they're not worried at all. Let's see if we can unravel the whole thing.
Right. So what would you suggest from your perspective now that we're in a position where we have apparently this strategic position where apparently there's language in a recent executive order signed by Trump which seems to indicate that the official white hats within the government now have the power to prosecute the pedocriminal rings. Number one, you've got supposedly Attorney General Jeff Sessions has a mandate to prosecute them. Number three, you have increasing public awareness of not only Pizzagate. Pizzagate is the Washington, D.C. version of it, but also you've got in the U.S., you've got it in all the major cities and industries. In LA, you've got it in the entertainment industry is built on pedophilia. It's just built on pedocriminal activity. It's built on that. And the government in Washington, D.C. is built on that. And in all 50 state capitals, it's built on that because that's how the CIA operated. The way that they compromised all officials and all of the entertainers that are supposed to be the, how they capture the mind through the Monarch and through the MK Ultra programming is they have everybody compromised through the pedosexual activity. And then, so they have that in all of the cities, and then all of the social services areas, the divorce courts, the custody, children custody, where you have single moms, can't take care of the children, so the child becomes the ward of the state, and then the state will push the children into pedocriminal rings, and that's the supply of the children. And then you've got more and more homeless children, the street children. How do we break all of that? What do you think? I'm sure that we're coming to a point where we can go on some fulcrums that we'll be able to push it in a way that it's going to get busted. What do you think?
I mean, when I look at it logically, when you just explain it like that, we're screwed. I mean, there's no way we can affect it even.
Well, no,
that is absolutely not what I believe.
Yeah.
I feel totally different.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel then?
I feel that difficult, yeah. Impossible, no. But we need to do it. We need to act, and we need to be fast and work together, network together, combine our efforts, combine our creativity, and not take no for an answer. Just because somebody in a government position says, yes, we have planned arrests, I do not believe it at all. Just because they arrest a few, that normally is that they're sacrificing a few that will have to take the fall for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that at all either. Even just because they're arrested does not mean that they will do time. And if they do time, they will be low-level individuals that they can see, let's just get rid of them anyway. They're a pain in the butt. What we need to do is get to the root of this, and then we're talking digging deep here, because then there's some heavy individuals that will not be able to continue in whatever situation they are, because I mean, these are heavy crimes, very, very, horrific crimes that have been carrying out or are being carried out. What to do? Take the power back. Ask the normal people. What would you do if it was your child and not somebody else's? You would get fire in your butt and start thinking, what can I do as an individual? What can I do? And start looking in your life. How can I be useful? In what way can I be part of exposing this whole thing? And this is where it comes in with what I love about women, especially elder women, is they do not back down. They are not frightened, and they will just carry on, especially when it's got to do with children. Start mapping it. Start finding out how are they doing it. Where, if there is such an installation, for instance, is in this, what is it called? The Droop Mountain. I forget the name. Droop Mountain.
Droop Mountain.
Droop Mountain. okay, fine, we have Droop Mountain. Apparently, that is one place. There are children, if they're still there, there are children there being held. So let's go there and find out how, if they're still there. That is one, go to the museum and see, are they there? What kind of tunnel? How can you get access to that tunnel? And for sure, there will be people in suits. The more accurate we are, the more people in suits and uniform will be there saying, please back off and go away, you horrible person. But that just confirms our suspicions. The more they try and resist, the more they do not do. This is how you see as well. If this was a normal case, and there was nothing to hide, and somebody heard a child scream from underneath, they would call the fire brigade. They would dig up the floor. They would bring in all kinds of people from the military, maybe, to get down to whatever tunnel thing that might have caved in on top of a child. There would be heroic things done to get these children out. Here, what you normally see with these type of crimes is nothing happens. You will be met by absolute silence, or pushed away from the area. So here, very interesting to go on that location and multiple other ones, because there will be many places part of this network around the States and in Europe. And just look for the signs. Where are there tunnels? Where is there an air base? Small towns? Where have there been a lot of children that have disappeared? Is it anywhere near in that area? It will be within driver's distance, often less. Will you have seen helicopter activity? Will you have heard planes come in and out at nighttime, maybe without lights on? And if so, if it's still ongoing, then go there, bring your sleeping bag and map this whole thing. Bring your grandmother, your grandchildren, whatever, have a nice picnic, a camping night out and map these, time them. When did they come? When did they go? What type of plane? Was it had it any kind of markings? If not, what color, size, model, and so on. And see if we together can start and get an idea of where do they land, where do they come from, how do they, how are these people fed? There must be logistics like toilets and these type of things. How is that possible? There would be electricians that have installed lights down in these tunnels. There would be plumbers. There would be people that are delivering food to apparent people that are not there. For instance, this small little museum, maybe there's somebody is delivering lots of meals on wheels or whatever you call it to that little museum. And maybe there's only one old guy working there selling tickets. Doesn't make sense. These type of things. Hang on, if there's 40 meals coming in and one person only there, suspicion. What is going on here? These are the type of things to look out for, and then start unraveling. Somebody has been part of digging these tunnels. Maybe it was your granddad who made drawings of it, because if this has been going on for many, many years, many, many people will know about it.
Right.
Pilots like Chip, like people in army bases will have seen it, will have noticed, what the hell, I was driving this army bus. They're under order, does not take away the conscience. It's your karma. You're doing it just because you've been ordered or have signed something to be quiet. It's your duty as a human being to expose it. I don't care. Whatever consequences, you did it, you have to deal with it. Okay. If you have been part of transporting children or whatever it is from one place to the other, your thing is to get the balls and expose it. Every day you live with it, it will eat you from the inside. If you're a normal human being, it will eat you from the inside. And these type of feelings create cancer. Healing comes from exposing things, relieving it, let it out in the air, the light come into these dark areas. So even if it will be a horrific experience to go through for you to expose what you've been part of, it will reveal you. It will clear your conscious so that you can deal, your soul can deal with yourself in a totally different way the day that you have to take the next step. There will be so many people that are aware of this, but nobody dares to talk about it. Nobody dares. Then send it anonymously to me, to Alfred, to other people who care. Send in descriptions, send in maps, send in photos, send in whatever type of evidence that have been, maybe there are people out there, I wouldn't be surprised, who have gathered a lot of information and evidence over the years, not knowing what to do with it. Well, maybe now granddad, who was part of it, is dead, so you can expose his part of it. Do you know that we're talking about a massive network? It's not just a few individuals. Massive is the word, but it will be totally compartmentalized. So if you are part of it, you will only know your little part. But every little part is super important in this puzzle. We need all of them. So bring it on, and let's get these children out for the mother of God. You know, every day we're sitting here not caring, it's ongoing. Right now, they're in these horrific situations. I mean, it needs to stop. My mind just goes into meltdown mode when I think of it.
You know, I just had an idea that you have done some tremendous work. I mean, your book on the assassination of Olof Palme, your presentations on the JFK assassination, on Operation 40, on all of the different false flags. Now, with your colleague Karin Hutzebout and others, you've gotten into the area of exposing these hidden pedocriminal networks that have been ongoing, I mean, we know at least 125 years, but for centuries, really, because of the longevity. These things go back to Babylon and beyond. And so I'm just wondering whether or not you want to put together an article, maybe together with Karin, an article or a presentation, because then you're bringing the weight of that, you know, and it's opening up a whole new area of activity. And then the public can get behind that as well. And then we can start getting a whole public behind that in the same way that we've been getting publics behind the false flags, so that everybody begins to read false flags now, so that the false flags are like, everybody knows they're false flags. But now, not everybody knows that underneath the J. Paul Getty Museum, there are children. Not everybody knows that that pizza is one of the names and the distribution mechanisms for the pedocriminal, pedosexual activities that are gathered through these children that are shipped into the urban areas and are distributed through memes like pizza, you know, and through undercover activities. That this is how they distribute it, through email chains and through Pizza Huts and things like that. And are you inclined that way yet, or are you just beginning to get, you know, so that it becomes a formal part of your work? I know I'm kind of intruding in your work here, but anyway.
The thing, Alfred, is I'm a one-man band. I'm on my knees.
Yeah, I know. We all are stretched.
I'm so overloaded. And of course, anything I can do, absolutely anything I can do. At the same time, I also ask to listeners and so on.
Yeah.
please understand that Alfred and myself, I don't know about you, but I think so, and Karina, so we're just normal people. I don't have an income since years, and so on, because I'm focusing 100% of trying to do my best to live this world the best I can.
Yeah, well,
So,
you know,
so
what I'm thinking is people can go to info@lightonconspiracies.com. They can donate to you, and they can say, Ole, with these donations, start writing and start doing presentations on Pedogate and Pizzagate, and getting a tremendous amount of so that we can have demonstrations in front of the J. Paul Getty, so we can have people who will go down to the Droop Mountain State Park, and so that we will have a totally different view of national parks, so that we will have a totally different view of how pedophilia has infected, and pedocriminal networks have just infected the entire, and how our children are being captured and shipped around the world and even off planet, and that's what our world and the rulers of our planets and our governments have signed contracts to do this.
I tell you,
It's got to get out.
The thing that drains me the most is this financial crap all the time.
I know.
This
Well,
no, but what I'm saying is
yeah.
that anyone who listens to this, please, just like Alfred said, there are donation buttons on my website, lightonconspiracies.com. Sign up for my newsletter. There are a membership area, my books on Amazon. These are the only sources of income I have. I've done, I don't know, I think maybe 1,000 interviews by now. I don't get paid at all. I don't get paid at conferences and so on. But what I'm saying is, help with donations. I'm going to be the one at Droop Mountain leading the whole thing. I'll be most happy to
Right.
I try to go, I aim at going to the Mother of Darkness, this castle in Belgium, and start some kind of do it until it stops, to keep exposing it. So we will come to a point where we will transcend this whole thing, but we need active action. We need to really involve ourselves in this whole thing, and I'll be most happy to be in the front line, whatever it takes. But I need support as well.
Right. Yeah, and I, so I urge our listeners who are listening to this, and we're putting all of the documentation in the article accompanying this interview, that if there's something in here that really resonates in you, don't hesitate to pick up the phone, pick up your email, contact Senator Joe Manchin, Manchin of West Virginia, contact the Office of the new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and say, you've got an executive order now that mandates you to prosecute the pedocriminal networks. We've got under every museum in America, and we have experts that are saying that that's true. There are pedocriminal holding facilities filled with children. We know it at Droop Mountain State Park, and West Virginia. We have to get a critical mass on this, because our children are being shipped in the millions, and there's a contract, there's a treaty that was signed during the Eisenhower administration, coming up from the Truman administration, to send children to Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, elsewhere, in exchange for oil in exchange for security positions, their support of Wahhabism. Israel is part of this, and that's why you have such strong strategic support between Israel, the Mossad, the United States government, Wahhabism, and pedophilia, and Zionism. It all goes back to these, and the Federal Reserve, and going back to the bank panic of 1907, when the City of London and the Rothschilds, the Christ child, they sent everybody over to do an artificial bank panic. They put everybody opposed to the Federal Reserve on the Titanic. They sank that, and they brought in the Federal Reserve, and we had a century of world wars and horrors, just based on debt-based money. A bunch of fakers, bunch of frauds, and so we're going to kick them off the planet. And that's what it is. We have to kick the Draco-based, the Orion-based money system off of the planet. So anyway, okay, Ole, you've wound up your interviewer. I'm sorry.
I didn't know I did that.
Yeah. Wow.
You can do that on your own.
Listen, it was the last battle of the Civil War on my father's side. We're from Louisiana. So I grew up at my grandmother's house, where they had Confederate money in my grandfather's library, and all our relatives, who had died in the Civil War and everything.
So let's be the last battle before we transcend this whole crap.
Yeah. So we have to move out of this duality, and there's no reason why we have to continue worshiping to the gods of Babylon that started this as a pedophilia planet, as a pedocriminal planet. So let's make this the last generation on this planet that has to go through a pedocriminal planet. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you to bring this segment to a close, because this is really to share with the world your friends, alerting the world as to what's happening at Droop Mountain Battlefield State Park. And that's what you and I are doing here. And I really want to thank you for having sent us that letter, and so we can put it in context here. So I'm going to give you the word here. So if you want to reach out, Ole.
No, it's I already feel that I have reached out, and the thing is, because it haven't been done before does not mean that it cannot be done, and just because it's difficult doesn't mean that it's impossible. Just because it's big doesn't mean that. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, and the real power pyramid is never ever at the top. It's always at the bottom. You pull the bottom pieces away, the whole thing falls over, and the bottom part of these power pyramids are us, the people we're looking at. The reason I come into this area is because whatever I look into, I come back to the same power structure, the same people in these key positions again and again and again. Doesn't matter if it's false flags or drugs or pedo trafficking or top political assassinations or world wars or whatever, oil, whatever it is, it's all the time comes back to the same, which makes it quite simple and easy to understand the bigger picture. So whatever avenue we chooses, that can be the one that turns this whole thing over. And I just want to tell you that so many of these false flags, they put like a trailer, like some kind of evidence about the next upcoming event. Do you remember we've gone through many of these things where with the Bataclan, where they had this blood on the floor that then turned out to be exactly identical to the logo of the Brussels airport in red, And then in the Brussels airport that they blew up there, at least they claimed, in the evidence there was a photo of a French cafe where on the wall behind all the debris, there was a painting of the Eiffel Tower vertical. So I went out big time, stopped that. Then like a week later, ISIS came out with a video where they were going to blow up the Eiffel Tower, identical to the painting, with this whole thing. And then when the Nice attack was there, then they also attacked the Eiffel Tower, and there are all these photos where it looks like it was on fire and smoke. And now, if you didn't know it, today I saw an article, they're going to build, or they plan to build, like a glass wall around the Eiffel Tower for security reasons. And it just goes on and on. And in Nice, there were what I thought was that they were warning about that the next attack would be at the Acropolis in in Athens. Instead, it was the Olympia shopping mall in München and so on. So there are all of these little things. And over Christmas with the truck attack in Berlin and the nightclub in Istanbul, there were like 5 or 6 of them, including the Fort Lauderdale one, where the theme was Santa Claus. It was the Santa just came all through all of these different ones. There was some Santa. And then the attack in Fort Lauderdale, absolute hoax. It was on the 6th of January, and there was one individual, bizarre looking, that was being interviewed called Santa Paul. And you can see him in the background. He's in several different positions where he's not supposed to be. He looks like Santa Claus, big white beard, bright. He's got like neon green trousers and a red top, or the other way around, a red shirt, and with a big dog. And when you look at it frame by frame, the images of him are like superimposed on top of each other. I don't know what bizarre type of thing, but it was very obvious that they wanted us to see this individual. So I thought, Santa Paul, are they going to hit St. Paul's Cathedral or something like that in London? So I wasn't able to find out about that. I couldn't find what St. Paul, because I know there's St. Paul, like in the US, there are different St. Pauls, I think in Missouri.
Minnesota.
Or is it Minnesota? Sorry.
Yeah.
And so I've been like St. Paul. And then on the 21st of January, there was this so-called car attack in Melbourne, Australia, where there is this. I love that one. It's got everything in it. Have you seen the guy that he's in a car and he drives like he's doing donuts in the center of town, and then he takes off and goes up and drives on the pavement saying he killed a whole bunch of people. But when you start looking into it, I love this one because it's a classical. You got this whole thing where he's driving around. Afterwards, there's a witness that says, "Oh, he was screaming Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar." But when you look at him, he wasn't screaming anything like that at all. Then when he takes off, there's one guy in blue that is standing around directing him, like saying like this, drive faster and spin the wheels. And then you got like 3 different cars, silver, identical cars that follows him without sirens or anything, but it's very clearly police cars. And when you look at the strategic position of how they closed the whole thing off, very, very cleverly, with 2 trams and the other cars that are involved, that just blocks the whole thing off, including one of these horse rides, these tourist horse drives that just blocks all traffic, because this is right outside the main train station, which is also the icon of Melbourne. It really is the classical one. And when you see many of the images, it's always in the back. And it's got a tower that looks like Big Ben in the other end of it.
Right.
And the footage of it all started with more or less a zoom in on that tower, and then it goes out and it starts filming the whole thing. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that the whole thing is just because one of the things is that it's not the same car where he's doing the donuts as the ones that is where he's caught, where it's the bum, everything is
Right.
the roof and the hood is just knocked in and so on. He's pulled out and arrested and so on. The thing is, it's got what do you call it? When you pull a trailer behind it, a tow hitch.
Uh-huh.
Is that what you call it? A tow hitch?
Yeah.
Okay, the car where he's doing the donuts have one of these. The car where he's pulled out of do not have one of these. So I would say not the same vehicle. And when you compare the license plates of the car, you cannot see the license plates on any of the photos of the crash car. And anyway, it's what I wanted to say that is I just found out that this whole thing took place right outside the St. Paul's Cathedral in Melbourne.
Huh.
So it was not St. Paul in Minnesota, Minnesota. And it was not St. Paul's in London, but it was St. Paul in Melbourne.
Oh.
So it's like... And then they have the name of the guy. They say it's a Greek name. I think his name is Dimitris Gorgonzolas.
Right.
And Garganzolas. But that is so close to Gorgonzola. Then you got Garga, which means devil entity, and then soulless. They have all of these where they play around with the names of the so-called attacker. In one of the victim in Denmark at the shooting there, his name was an Israeli. There were always these Jewish victims in this whole thing, and his name was Dan Uzan, which is very near Uzi. I mean, everybody that knows anything about weapons, but Uzan in Danish means untrue. Yeah, and today. I saw one of the victims. I hope it's okay if I say her name. Her second name, I think her first name was like Dorothy, and then Dick Ass On. Dick Ass On. Yeah. DICKASON. I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Dick Ass On. Is that a name? But they have many. I tell you, when you look at the people that are being interviewed as witnesses or somehow involved, look at their names and see how they're playing with them.
Yeah. This is kind of the MK Ultra or the managed news and the psycho programming aspect of news, where they plan the false flags that then they create the fake news, and embedded in the context, in the content of the fake news is all this psychological programming that further hypnotizes the people into becoming psychopathic and inured, and part of the transhumanist agenda to robotize people and make them soulless, which is part of the AI agenda, the soulless agenda. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you hear? You just said the name of this Australian guy, Gorgonzolas, soulless.
There we go.
That's exactly the ending of his name, soulless.
There we go. And
they put it in there.
Yeah, and so that is part of the terraforming, and then that is played out as subliminal programming, because that's repeated through the news and through the newspapers that people hear on the internet, on their smartphones, on their television. So it's all programming. So the false flags are to create the programming that goes into the news, which is trauma-based programming, because they're looking at it on their smartphones and it's all about the trauma of this. In Melbourne's Central Plaza, all this trauma is going on with St. Paul's Cathedral. There you go.
I tell you, I have a friend, he's got a program called Sage Acquire. He's the radio host for it, and his name is Mike Williams. Super interesting guy, because he's also a hypnotist. And he says that when he looks at the news, he looks at it from a point of his business, you know, his way of seeing these things. And he said when it comes to these type of things, it's always in red. The red is there to get the emotional reaction. And often you have like the news, the latest news, and they have like a round circular thing, like a sphere that rotates in the background. That is just as the same as, you know, like in the old days, they had a watch in front of your eyes, like you are feeling sleepy now, you know. This has the exact same effect on you. And then sometimes there's even a countdown, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now here's live from New York or whatever. That's 5, 4, 3, 2. That is also part of the countdown to get you into a veggie state. Down below, they have all of these NASDAQ, this like text tickers that is crawling over the screen. All of these kind of info that is totally not important at all. He says that is to get your eyes into a specific rhythm that puts you in even further down into this veggie state. So you come home, 5, 4, 3, 2, emotional countdown, and here we get the text ticker, and boom, you're down. So you're sitting down there after a long day, put on the news because you need to relax. You throw yourself on the sofa, put it on, and they count you down, 3, 2, 2, and then once you're down in the veggie state, they start hitting you. That is why they use the exact same words: attack, Islam, terrorist, terror attack, Islamist, terror, Allah Akbar, machete, backpack. I mean, as soon as you say backpack, your mind goes into Boston, and these type of things. So they use the same words, the same scenario, the same everything, just repetition, and just to get you into this fear mode of just absolute panic. And in the background, while they interview people, please be aware of these things that looks very graphic and beautiful, like CNN. I saw today there were all of these things coming up behind the people being interviewed, all of them making perfect pyramids. You know, you have all of these Freemasonic pyramids coming in the background. Everything is, you're calm, you're free, you're safe. And there was all of the boom, boom, boom. So, well, I think it's really interesting to watch mainstream news. If you start looking for the details instead of listening, turn off the volume and just check it out, you know, as an experiment, check it out, because this is how they try to reach you or to get to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also want to say, if I can, in my world of false flags, I have been accused of seeing false flags everywhere. And I can totally understand that accusation. The thing is, I have looked into so many, and all of them have turned into be provable false flag operations. So, I mean, what can I say? I can only point and prove each and every single case. And at this point, these false flags are ridiculously many. I mean, there's so many of them. And I would suggest, I would put it even further, that many of these like horrific car accidents or train derailings or flight crashes and stuff, like so many of them are part of this whole thing to create chaos. It even goes under the name of Operation Chaos, or the strategy of tension, how to make you afraid of everything. So many of these things that you see on local news or national news, I doubt them. I strongly doubt them. And you have this thing with the duping delight thing as well. Turn down the volume. See these people that are being interviewed that are supposed to have been taking part of some kind of traumatizing experience, like a car accident or something, and they're standing there smiling. It's called duping delight. It's a psychological phenomena. You know, there's this Chattanooga bus accident that I looked into. It didn't make sense at all. All of it just absolute stage, and that was just one accident. There's like football stadium panic situations where people have just where there was like a stampede, you know, and the fire broke out, and it just ended up with loads and loads of people getting killed here in Europe years ago. When you look into that as well, it's a gladio operation, and it's all there to create fear. Fear, 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 fear. It's only through fear that they can control us. So I tell you, every time they throw something at you that will make you go, ask yourself, who benefits from me becoming fearful? Who benefits from me believing this? Because it's through fear. It is through fear. And this is why I always go and try to do everything I can to make people fearless. I try to inspire people to become fearless. And one of the ways is to show that it's just a show. They're playing with our minds. Many of these things that is so horrific in the world, they say, oh, all of this is so awful. It's so, this is happening. A lot of it is not. So when I look out the window, I see a beautiful world, to a certain extent, messed up, but nothing that we can't fix once we transcend this whole thing. But this whole thing about global chaos and global this and that and horrific things, absolutely not. So much is based on fear propaganda, fear porn that they want you to buy so that they can control you.
Right.
I say, let go of fear. And if I can finish with a prayer.
Yes, please.
I love to do this with you, Alfred. I did this at a meeting. I was recently at a meeting in London. I did not know who the arranger was. I came there. It turned out that while I was preparing, I noticed that the crowd was quite colorful, I must say the least. It looked like almost like a film set, people with right-wing type of ideas, I would say. There was National Front flags there were skinheads, but most people were sort of sophisticated, or very well off, wealthy type of people. And while I was, because the thing is, whoever invites me, I will go there and do my absolute best. And I think to preach to people that already know it all, what is the point? So I say, let's go into the darkest of the dark, into prisons, military, police, anywhere, you know, where I can make a difference. I welcome these opportunities. So while I was preparing, I was feeling a little nervous because I felt I didn't even know what to talk about, because they didn't give me sort of a topic they wanted to hear about. They just invited me. And while I was preparing, I started hearing outside the hotel, there was like this crowd going, whoo, 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 whoo. I looked out and they were like, I don't know, 50, 60, maybe 100 people with black masks and black clothes and black flags and a smoke bomb. And they were screaming neo-Nazi type of things. And it was at us inside there.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, my God, this is bizarre. And anyway, so in front of this crowd that was not very, I think they were not very keen on people from other cultures and so on, I spoke about people from other cultures and how important it is for us to see that we are being played, you know, divide and conquer, hate each other, instead of looking upon who's the ones causing all of these problems. And I finished with this prayer, which took some guts to do, because I just felt, oh my God. And I finished with this prayer. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Victory to that light. We all need to heal. They need to heal as well. And So it was a colorful experience to be part of this whole thing. And afterwards, we were not allowed to leave the hotel because there were police helicopters outside, and it was just a whole. So the police said, "You cannot go out. It's too dangerous." I said, "I'd be most happy to go out." And I just walked straight out to them, smiling. And it was so interesting because behind these masks, they were looking at me like, "Are we supposed to hate you? Are you one of these people we're supposed to hate?" And the thing is, when you go with an open heart, the world is open. And I just thought it was super interesting. I'm very happy for that experience.
Well, that is so wonderful, because you just go over the duality, just transcend the duality.
This is it. Thank you for putting it in words, because that is exactly what happened. And there were two people afterwards that came up to me, one woman and a man that came up, and the woman, she just started thanking me, and she almost started crying. So I held her, and her whole body was shivering like this, And so I held her for a minute or two, and I hugged this man as well, he was in tears as well. I'm not saying this to boost my ego. I'm saying it when you talk about love and you live it and you stand up for it, because they presented me as a freedom fighter. I say, I'm absolutely not a freedom fighter. I'm a freedom lover. The power of love, that is the way. And it's just fantastic to do it in action, in the so-called combat situation, but where you do it with love. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ole. This has been a marvel. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Alfred.
And thank you for sending us the alert to Droop Mountain. And thank you for providing the context today. And I hope that you can come back and join us as we have further developments with Droop Mountain and other topics in this area.
Anytime, Alfred. And I really feel that, this is a crack that opened up. I'm so happy that you reacted, because this was a desperate cry for help. I didn't know what to do with it. I sent it to you, and you were part of making this happening. So it's fantastic. I'm very, very grateful for that.
Wonderful.
Okay. And now I'll go back to bed. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.